Who is Paul Cézanne? Paul Cézanne was one of the main artists of post-impressionism. He used planes of shading and small brushstrokes into his art. Paul Cézanne's top 5 famous paintings. 1. The Large Bathers by Paul Cézanne. Considered by many to be the absolute masterpiece of this artist. The subject and the technique used are completely different from the standard of works that the painter has made in his artistic career. The artist wanted to create art that would last forever. The Cézanne Bathers represent a manifesto for all those who wanted to represent non-commercial and counter-trend art. The women protagonists are painted with a strong thickness and fit geometrically perfectly to the whole context. The bathers represent a tribute that Cézanne decides to pay to the great masters of the past, such as Titian and Rubens. The strong brightness that the whole painting is due to the color that was placed several times on the canvas, which allowed Cézanne to obtain the necessary light to achieve the final effect. The strong black lines that delimit the contours of the Cézanne bathers, making them look like real statues, rather than painted. The message that Cézanne launched was immediately taken into consideration by other great names in the art world, in particular, Picasso, who in the same period and also with a very similar technique gave life to his masterpiece entitled Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. The artistic creation was obtained in 1937 for $110,000 for the Philadelphia Museum of Art by their significant sponsor, Joseph E. Widener. Cézanne worked on this composition for a long time, and it stayed incomplete even at the hour of his passing in 1906. If you have enjoyed the video so far, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel. Let's know if you want more videos like this by hitting the like button. Now back to the video. 2. The Basket of Apples Still Life by Paul Cézanne. Taking a first look at the basket of apples, one might have a strange feeling of precarious balance. There are various parts with different balances, but when added together they conclude in a completely balanced composition. In the central part of the painting, there is an inclined bottle, and on its left there is a basket that is overturned in the opposite direction concerning the inclination of the bottle, giving a feeling of disorientation. To the right of the bottle, there is a plate with cookies, which matches the same direction as the right side of the table. The right side of the painting has nothing to do with the left one since they're not matching each other, just as if the image were reflecting two different points of view at the same time. All these details are not mistakes made by Cézanne, but an interesting experiment in perspective that succeeded perfectly, subsequently leading to a fundamental point in the transition from Impressionism to Cubism. 3. The Card Players by Paul Cézanne. The two players engaged in the card game are isolated from the other customers of the club. The two men are perhaps farmers, and one of them was probably named Alexander, the gardener on the estate of the artist's father in Jas de Buffon. They are seated at a simple wooden table on which a bottle of wine closed by a cork is placed. Card players wear simple but dignified clothing. The man on the left is wearing a jacket and a hat. While carefully evaluating his cards, he smokes a pipe. The player on the right seems younger and dresses more casually. Around them, you can see the boiserie of the room, that is the decoration of the wooden walls and the glass of a door. The painted coffee table in a central position has the task of building the three-dimensional space through the overlapping perspective that creates the right articulation of the figures of the players interacting through the table. In constructing the space, the luminous relations of figure-ground contrast must also be taken into consideration. 4. The Boy in a Red Vest by Paul Cézanne. A boy is portrayed in the center of the painting. He is seated at a table and facing right. His torso is curved and wearily supported by his left arm. The boy's head rests on the hand that supports his cheek. He wears simple clothes and a white shirt with a red fabric waistcoat on the front and ochre color on the back. Bring a pair of blue pants. On the left, the dark interior of the room. The front wall is lighter, and on it, you can see the detail of a painting. The brush strokes are thick and irregularly arranged. In some places, you can see the intervention of spatula strokes that stretch the color with clean cuts. The boy's body seems assembled with simple and geometric shapes. Cézanne elaborated on a formal simplification to return nature to the simple forms of the cone of the cylinder and the sphere. 5. The Bather by Paul Cézanne. The protagonist is a teenager, who is wearing only a small white costume, is standing in the center of the work, takes a step forward with the left foot supporting the body. The boy is of medium height and his legs with big feet. His face is bent towards the ground and his position is frontal. His hair is short and dark and creates a fringe on the forehead. The trunk has a fine musculature while the legs are massive. Hands are resting on the hips. The left shoulder is slightly lower than the right. The land is devoid of vegetation and looks like a sandy beach. On the right, there is a puddle with little water. Finally, in the background opens a landscape devoid of details and blurred. The sky occupies about the upper half of the canvas while the lower one is reserved for the landscape. The figure of the man joins the two horizontal halves of the painting. The figure of the teenager is summarized and the arrangement of the limbs reveals attention to geometric composition. The bent arms form two triangles thanks to the position of the hands on hips.